Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Alejandra.
How are you?
Awesome. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. So, so, so great to have you here this
I'm
morning.
sorry. Hold on.
Can you hear now?
I was I was trying to see the live feed. I couldn't get the mute on. I couldn't get the volume off. So forget it.
Okay, no, good. It's good. Great. It's so great to see you, Kim.
Great to see you too. This is really special. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's really special for me too. These days, I have been thinking about you so much, especially, of course, with everything that is going on in the country, and I just wish everybody the best, no?
Yeah.
And so, so thank you again for being here. For me, these conversations have been really special because every one of you brings something in me that I treasure so much. No?
Yeah, this is great that you've been doing these conversations and seeing all my old friends and my old roommate even last week. That's so great.
So thank you, Kim. Um, I usually like to start this conversation by asking everyone where you from, Kim, and how music came into your life.
All right. Well, it's a little bit of a story. I was born in Bangor, Maine, and then immediately within months moved to New Brunswick, Canada. And my father was a pastor, one of the music pastors in different churches, and so he kind of floated around. So we were 3 years in New Brunswick, Canada, and then went to Indianapolis, Indiana, for 2 years. When I turned 5 years old in Indianapolis, that's when I started playing the violin. And the reason is because we went on this trip to St. Louis, and friends of my parents. The mom was a Suzuki teacher, and her daughter had just begun playing, and I got to witness a 5 year old little girl who was 2 months younger or older. I don't know which direction do it. And then we went to a Suzuki playthrough where we got to see all these little kids playing in a line in a big room. And I was just like, wow, they're my age. If they can do it, maybe I can do it. Wouldn't that be so cool? And so my mother loves to go to garage sales. She still does. And we went to a garage sale soon after getting back to Indianapolis. And there was this blue plastic wind up Snoopy guitar. It was 10 cents. And I begged my mom for it. And she's like, why? And I didn't disclose anything. I just said, please, please, please. She's like, well, if they take a nickel, you can have it. And they did. On the way home, I'm just holding it so tight. I get home and I went into the kitchen. I ran. I have never felt like, I don't remember ever feeling before that such a desire for anything, but I ran and got a pencil. I wanted a pencil because I knew I wanted to have something that looked like a bow. I didn't actually ever strum it. I don't think I ever strummed it like a guitar, like it was meant to be. I got a pencil and I put it under my chin. I wound it up and I pretended to play. I'm like, I have my own violin now. And my mom saw it and she asked, Kim, do you want to play the violin? And I was really excited because I don't know, I guess this sounds mean, but I don't remember feeling like what I wanted was something that was super important. And so when she asked, and it was so true to what I wanted, well, anyway, we went and rented one and we got some lessons. Um, and then soon after that, we moved to Dayton, Ohio. My dad was a minister of music there for many, many years, and that's where I grew up, is in Dayton, Ohio. And I studied with various teachers. I went through all the Suzuki in Dayton, Ohio, and then transferred to a few other teachers. Ended up with the concertmaster, the Dayton Philharmonic, Peter Ceschini. And it was my time with him that I was introduced to people down at Herod Conservatory. I don't know if anybody has heard of that. It's down in Boca Raton, Florida, and it's now the Lynn Conservatory of Music. And um, yeah, Sergio Schwartz was my violin professor down there. I stayed there for 3 years. Two of them were high school still, and I don't know if Megan Ryder is Crawford is on here or will be, but she and I were besties down in Boca Raton, and Anyway, I transferred to U of M after 3 years down at Harrod, and that's where I met you and all these great Michigan people. And the reason I chose U of M was because of Paul Cantor. It kind of like literally just boiled down to Paul Cantor.
Mm.
I also auditioned at Rice. I guess I wasn't really into the New York thing right then. And because I had just been in the South, I kind of leaned towards staying uh, in a different climate, perhaps. I don't know. I just wanted something different. I just been in Florida for 3 years, so being in Texas for another 4 years, I was like, and it's so far from home. So Michigan seemed like the right fit, and Paul Cantor definitely seemed like the right fit. So that's why I went to U of M. And then, um, yeah, I think that was a really great decision. Senior year, I saw that there was an audition for the CSO, and I thought I was too late. I was actually late getting my application in, and it was like I don't know 2 or 3 weeks before the audition was supposed to happen. This is a crazy story, but I went for it anyways over Christmas break. That I found out about the audition, and I couldn't even get into the music library to get the excerpts. Like I didn't even have access to some of the excerpts yet. I'd never taken an audition before, and yeah. So anyway, you wanted to know where I was from, my musical background. I'll back up just a little bit. My father, being the music minister of churches, I grew up in music, immersed in music. My mother was the church pianist and organist. They actually, before I was born, they had their own traveling duo where my father would sing, my mother would sing, and play piano, organ, and accompany him. And they traveled around the country and created a record. I have it here somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. You can't really see it with all of the. Never mind. Anyway, they couldn't do that any longer after I was born, so they just kind of settled down and my yeah. So I grew up in the church. That was my life. Church was my life, and playing in service and playing hymns and arrangements that we would find or create. My mother and I. My mother would accompany me. That was my immersion into music.
Yes, it's really beautiful because I I I really feel that the environment, the musical environment in church is very beautiful. Like uh, people singing in the choir, and many times also they have musicians, that they perform in the services.
Mhm.
Uh, I did get to experience that in the United States when I was a student, and I just love that because also I realized that a lot of people will read music, no, because of this, no.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was very very special for me to experience that in the United States.
Yeah, I think that it really shaped me and what was purpose in music. I remember when I would play hymns, like it was so obvious to me
Mm,
what how it was supposed to sound, how it was supposed to feel, what the words behind the sound were, and the intention of what the impact could have on the listener and on myself. And you could feel it. It was tangible. It was moving.
mm,
And and then I'd get up in the same place and play something classical, and it was like I had a straitjacket on. It was like, oh, this is just so like how do you do this? And it took a long time to cross over between two different types of music to
mm,
create the understanding within myself that you can do the same thing no matter what you're playing, that the intention and the purpose and the desire and the feeling and the specialness of it, what you want for people. And I think that's really what it is. It's a mission. You want something for someone. You want to help somehow. Music heals. Music is powerful, and I think being brought up in that environment shaped that more than anything else could have in my musical life.
yes, this is fabulous, Kim. Thank you for sharing this because I totally agree. No, um, like the music to serve others, not to serve the world, and and I love the fact that you started from there, no? Because many times, sometimes also because playing an instrument is not easy, it requires a lot of time, a lot of concentration, um, to 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 have the ability to play an instrument well, no? And sometimes in that process we lose the reason why we're doing this, no?
Yes.
So it's so great that when you start with a solid base, um, I think it makes so much sense, no?
Yeah. And I think also, just kind of boiling it down practically, the the idea of singing, the human voice, growing up with my father being, he actually was trained at the New England Conservatory in voice, and he has a beautiful voice, gorgeous voice. I did a video to celebrate his retirement a few years ago, and I got my hands on his senior recital from the New England Conservatory, and I just kept listening to it over and over, and I'm just like, wow, my dad is so good. And I grew up listening to his inflection and um, emphasis and soul, the soul and the color of the voice, and how you can shape and color things. And and I think being able to model after singing is one of the most important things we can do as instrumentalists, and not just sound like a violin, but sound as much like the human voice as we can. And in order for the human voice to sound effective, what they have to do to create those moods and those characters and colors is what we need to go for in our violin playing, in our whatever string playing, any
Yeah,
kind of instrument playing.
yeah, that's great. I mean, you definitely have that in your playing. It's so great to have been seen lately because of this time of pandemic, your videos, and it actually, the first one I saw during this time was Bach, I think, and suddenly I thought, oh, this is Kim's sound, you know. I was like, I have missed it so much because it's so beautiful when one has his or her own voice, no, with the instrument, and I just love that. No,
Thank you, thank you.
you're
Was that
welcome,
the one
Kim.
with the pictures of everything? Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
kept putting it off, but I kept collecting pictures. Like I would snag this, snag that off of the internet, and like I just wanted to kind of document like the journey we've been going through, and just make it something short. I tend to get really long winded when I do videos. I've gotten kind of, I don't want to say savvy technologically, because I'm so far from that, but compared to what I was, I've gotten a little experience now doing it, and I tend to be like a little bit too long with it. I think I've given one person like a 3 hour video as a gift. I don't think they can watch it. It's like too much. Yeah, so I put that on Facebook, and I just wanted to like, it was so like heavy to me. The same with the Armenian struggle that's going on, the Crane. It just was like, boom, I have to do this. That morning I woke up, I have to do this. And it turned out that one of my most dear friends had passed away like the day or two before, and I didn't even know. And I had played this piece at her husband's funeral. She had told her family for years, please ask him to play this at my funeral. She had just passed away. I believe it was her waking me up that morning. You have to go. I need this. And so I did. And I had no idea. I put it out there that same day because I was in such a rush to do it. And anyway, the impact of that was the family got it, and it was such a gift, So I don't know. Technology can be used in all these amazing ways, and what you're doing right now with these conversations, using technology to connect through the screen. I still feel your presence through the screen. It's harder because like I miss those real hugs that you used to give. Oh my goodness, those were so special. I insist that we plan a time that we can have another chance.
Absolutely, Kim. We have to think about this because it's really, really needed in this part of the world too. From me, I say. Um,
So sorry,
thank
I
you.
got sidetracked. I totally went on a tangent
No,
there. We're talking
it's
about
fine.
human voice.
I mean, this is what these conversations are about. Before we move on, Gwendolyn Melancon, actually she's Gwendolyn Cantor. She says, Morning, ladies. So wonderful to hear you both and hear your story. Couldn't agree more about sounding like the voice. Absolutely.
I am so excited with our new music director for the Detroit Symphony, Yara Binamini, because
Yes.
he is an opera conductor, and his goal with sound in general is to model after the human voice. So I feel like yes, having that. I
and,
mean,
and Kim, did you ever had a conversation with your father about this? About you imitating his voice, or I don't know how to say it, but have you ever have talked about him
only
with
to thank
this?
him, only to thank him, to
Uh,
tell him really what an impact his example, not just his voice, his whole being, but the you know, I think I think he probably knew, but it was not something he insisted. And he wasn't like, "Oh, Kim, you have to model this or you need to do this." It was never generated like that. It was just I was a sponge soaking it up and then realized later in life what an amazing impact that had.
that's great. Kim, I'm going to go back to your time at Michigan, our time at Michigan, and I remember perfectly the time that you were applying for the position in Detroit. I totally remember because I remember you were rushing to things
Asking for rides because I had no gas in my car and I couldn't afford any gas. I think
no,
you had to cook me a few meals because I had no food. I was waiting for a paycheck because I was one of the baristas at Sweetwater's downtown, and I had just started a job there, and they hadn't paid me yet. I had no money, like zero money. I remember Howard Watkins. He was my pianist for a recital or competition. And I gave him a check for what I owed him. I'm like, can you hold on this for this a month? Because I was like, I literally had, I don't know, it was a crazy thing to just go for that, but
mm.
um, yeah,
but something that really something for me that is it has been so special with you uh, from those times. I mean, from the moment I met you, is that there's something to have a virtue, a great virtue, which is you 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 go for something and you go, and once you have it in your head, you just go for it. Um, of course, you have no idea what is going to happen with that, but you just go, and I remember that with you all the time. I mean, so you have something in your mind, an idea, and you go for it. And I love this because that was an inspiration for me too, no? But also the way we related it with each other was like that too, so clear, no? Like so transparent. And I appreciate that so much, no?
yeah, yeah. We exposed all. we
Yeah.
we told each other everything. Yeah, and we won't disclose any of that here.
Absolutely.
No, I think the clarity in my mind about when I learned about this audition was I've never taken an audition before. I would love to take an audition, and I knew Carolyn, Felix's wife, I Hubel. She was a sub and she was doing her upper graduate degree, and I was like, maybe that's what I could do. I was thinking maybe I would transfer somewhere for a master's degree and continue, or I could stay here and maybe I could be on the sub list. If I got on the sub list, that would mean I'm supposed to stay here. But I was even just like, and I could just look at this as an experiment with myself. I could see what is the most beautiful sound I can make? What is the most amazing experience of violin playing I could create? And that was kind of really where it boiled down to for me. It wasn't about winning. I didn't get my head messed up in that because I honestly I didn't even think it was a possibility. I not to like doubt that, but I was just like not even thinking of the outcome so much as in the moment, like what could be the most beautiful sound that Kim Kennedy can create, and what's in my way of creating that sound. And so I went through some kind of interesting processes. I didn't drink coffee. I didn't drink alcohol. Um, I didn't let myself think certain ways, and I encouraged myself to think certain ways. And if I started feeling like a heaviness or a like a frustration, I'd put the violin down. I'd go pray, or just take a break, go for a run, go for a bike ride, just get my mind off of it. And yeah, for the 3 weeks that I was preparing for this audition, that was my way of life. I it was over the holidays, and I do remember going to a party for New Year's and having some alcohol and actually feeling the difference for like 5 days until it could get out of my system. I was just like, wow, that did drag me down. It's amazing, the what we feed ourselves, literally, like how it affects how we are going to be after it. And it took 5 days to clear that out before I felt like I was as clear headed and physically not um, uh, I don't know, bottled up from it. I might be, talking way too much about that, but for me at the time, it was pretty profound. And also, just not letting anything into, like, it was like a sacred bubble of my time with the violin. I just wanted it to feel very uplifting, very inspiring and inspired. And the question of how beautiful can this music be played, and looking for that enlightenment. And I had examples of people, of course, Paul Cantor, like his words were always in my head of, like, I still have him in my head sometimes. But I was lucky to be the second chair in the Aspen Chamber Orchestra for 3 years, and my stand partners were the pros. So I had Ava Stern-Weiss and David Perry. And David Perry was one of the concert masters of Orpheus Chamber, and Ava was the concert master of the Berlin Symphony, the other one,
Yeah.
not the usual one. And both of them were just amazing examples, violin examples, musical example, people example of how to respond in the moment to create amazing sound. And I don't think there's anything that can replace that. If you ever want to influence somebody in an amazing way, just day after day after day, just play next to them and be that example to show them how to live out that page and that sound and that music and that influence from a conductor, how to respond to a conductor, how to lead and be that example musically, rhythmically, sound wise, vibrato, intonation, just the characters. That I kept asking myself, what would David do? What would Ava do? And so that was also inspiring my practice and hearing their sound in my head. So I I was very surprised after the well, I wasn't surprised after the prelims when when I walked out on the stage and I always tune before I play, like no matter what. I'm just gonna check my strings. And when I played my first open strings in orchestra hall, I was like, whoa, cool. I was just enraptured with the acoustics, and I had never experienced anything like that before. So I was actually having fun during my first round of auditions. I was like, this is very, very cool. And like I don't know if because I hadn't had coffee or alcohol or just like, but I felt like I could feel my audience, which was behind a screen, and I had never met them, but I felt like I could feel them. And talking about my upbringing with playing in church and purposes, I felt like that had at least a little bit that was happening in my audition, that I was able to connect to those people there, that soul to soul, heart to heart, mind to mind. It wasn't just about I'm I'm afraid and you get to judge. That's the I think that can be the usual mindset when we're auditioning, but human to human, heart to heart, person to person, that was, I don't know if that stayed as I progressed through the second round and the third round and the finals. because I was getting more and more nervous, like, just like, whoa, this was not expected. Now what? And to disclose all, I got to the audition, and I'd only learned the first page of Brahms' fourth movement.
Mhm.
They asked for the other one too. I had half an hour to put fingerings in, and
Wow.
scramble to get the harder excerpt ready. Bum, bum, and they kept asking for it over and over, because it was obvious it was just not there or as good. They kept telling me I was rushing, and I was like, that's not the biggest problem here. Like, I'm totally faking some of these notes. That's the bigger problem. But anyway, that was interesting. Yeah, so I think it was a shock to me. It was a shock to my teacher. It was a shock to everyone around me that that was the result. Honestly, looking back on it, I just feel that there was destiny involved. There was a purpose involved, that I was put there, and I'm there for a reason, and the reasons behind that have shown themselves here and there. We went through a really big strike, 6-month strike. Um, so that was back in 1998 was when I became part of the Detroit Symphony. In 2003, I became the associate concertmaster, which is second chair. And and then in 2010, we went on a 6-month strike. Right after that, our concertmaster left, and it was my job to step in as concertmaster. It was also a really divisive time in our organization, where there was so much division, and I don't know, that feels familiar right now, doesn't it? Everyone talking against each other and blaming the other side, and I I just didn't believe in that kind of I don't know. I'm going to use a word that I heard last night: demonization. Demonization. I didn't want to move forward like that. I knew that the climate needed to change, and I knew that there there was only one way to help that, which was to start changing the conversation. And um, and I felt like I was in a position to help change that conversation. So it was not popular how I was going to speak.
And sorry, Kim, to how do you realize about that, about this idea that you have to change the conversation? What?
Well,
How?
even before we came back together, I was like, okay, even if some of this is true, we still have to work with these people.
Mm,
We still have to walk down the hall with these people. Our livelihood is dependent on money being raised. If they don't believe in us and we don't believe in them, how are we going to step out of this and step forward into life again? There's no life in just having enemies. Like, that's a destructive way to be. And I was uh, hopeful that we could have conversations that were different. And I knew that the musicians in the orchestra wanted to be heard. That was a big deal. We felt we weren't being heard. But I had an inkling that there were people on the other side that also wanted to be heard
mm,
and to be seen. And that if I was willing to listen to them, maybe they'd also be willing to listen to me. And so that's where I put my hand out.
mhm.
And we had a board meeting, and I played meditation, and I went out there and I said, I just want to let you know I'm here to see you and to hear you and to thank you that we are going to travel this together going forward. And it was, I think, I don't know, um, it might have sparked um, maybe some forgiveness, maybe uh, some effort to back off, and to see that I'm palms up. I don't have my dukes up anymore. I'm not just against you. My palms are up, and I want to hear you, and I want to connect, and I want to give, and I want to receive. And um And then the mantra of the DSO became one DSO. We had some new leadership come in, and it was basically a complete change of face in the mission of the DSO, and it was to be transparent and to be unified. And anything that disunified, the pressure was on to get rid of that kind of talk and get rid of that kind of whatever the reason was. Like, let's solve it. If there's legitimate discomfort about something, let's go there and let's talk it through, but with the understanding the goal is unity. And I think when you asked about like how did I get to that point, I was like, are we really on opposite sides of this? And everybody's agenda, seems so different. Is that true? I think we probably have more in common than not. We probably have more of the same desires and goals than not. Let's unify on those. Let's celebrate those. Let's move forward on those, and things we disagree on. Let's have nice conversations. Let's take out the trigger words. Let's take out the blaming words, and let's unify to move forward. And it reminded me, this past week, what everyone's going through. It's like, we can do this. We can walk forward. If enough people want to create a different climate, we can. And I remembered back then how hard it was to step out and kind of leave the pack, leave the people who are with their dukes up. But I remember one of the wives of our administration, we were having dinner, and she's like, for such a time as this, to me. And I don't know if most people would understand what that even entailed. It's a scripture from Esther, from the book of Esther in the Old Testament, and where she was in a really, really difficult place, but that she believed she was put there for a certain purpose. And so this woman speaking that message to me, it was just like, really? Oh, that means so much more to me, to hear that there's purpose even beyond music, to why I think I love my job. I love playing in the Detroit Symphony, but I love my community and I love the people. And the I wouldn't want to just like skip town for any reason. I'm dedicated to being in Detroit. And yeah, so anyway, now I am back in the saddle again of being acting concertmaster this past year, and through COVID. Like, there's like, I'm the crisis the crisis concertmaster.
Oh. Well, thank you, Kim, for sharing that. I'm curious. Did you have this conversation with the whole orchestra, with the full orchestra, or some members of the orchestra?
There were some members, but I would speak to anybody who was going to listen, no matter, like, I would just be at a table at some gathering, and somebody would start talking, and I would hear things start to go a certain direction. I would like, just like, but could we consider this? If we really want this, then let's consider that we need to consider how we're going to get there. And yeah, so it was just looking for opportunities. And I don't know, I think it took some courage to step out of. I'm not usually a speaker. Like, I was a little afraid of coming on here because I'm not really a speaker. I'm usually the one that puts my foot in my mouth and says the wrong thing and have some credit later. And I'm sure I'm gonna do that today. But
Kim, that's the same feeling that I have about myself.
It's like, who's watching? Okay, let me see. Can we edit that out before anybody else says?
No, but really, it's very important what you're talking about, because at the same, we have to realize that we are all one. No, the orchestra, the community, the musicians, the administration, and for some reason, we. I think I don't know if it happens with all the organizations, but we don't take time for this. I'm curious to know if any orchestra in the world takes time with, for example, with all the musicians, and have a gathering to know what do you really want in the orchestra, as the mission or as the vision, no?
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I think the Detroit Symphony is unique actually in a lot of ways because of the friendliness
mm,
amongst everybody there. There's not a I don't know, a clicky type of atmosphere where people are against each other and like gossip. It's not yeah, I feel very fortunate to have this. And then, when I first got in the orchestra, I remember conversations with people, oh, don't trust this person in management because they're just gonna take advantage of you. And that was like the flavor when I entered. It is so not that way anymore. And I just feel this trust and this unity, and how the Detroit Symphony has treated us through this pandemic is a sign that we are together. We are still working. We're out on stage, and they are behind the scenes fighting so hard to keep us going. And the love that is there now, I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back whatsoever when I was talking about 10 years ago when we were going through that. I was just mainly saying, why did I even win that job in the first place? Like maybe that was, I was just a small part of helping us go in this healthier direction. It would have potentially been that way without me. So like that's totally possible. And probable actually, because we have such amazing humans in our orchestra. But I just feel like the courage it took for me to step out of the way things had been, and start changing how I was talking. Um, and other people like my husband and other people in the orchestra, we kind of like I think there were enough people who agreed that this was important, and I think that we just helped change the flavor of the conversation. And now with the pandemic, being back to work and coming back on stage with these amazing people and these amazing musicians, um, it's moving, it's emotional to feel my colleagues and feel their music on the stage again. It was beautiful.
yeah. It's so beautiful to hear you, Kim, and but also I feel that there's so much trust and respect from each other's, like the musicians, and that's so important, no, at the
Yes,
end,
yes,
because you can disagree on things, but I respect you,
yes,
no,
yes.
and this is wonderful. Kim, um, I was thinking about what you mentioned about your process of the audition in Detroit, and when you talk about not drinking coffee and not drinking alcohol.
It's I'm drinking plenty now.
No, but I so much agree about what you mentioned. Like me, for example, I had a health issue in 2011, and from that year my life changed, because I realized if I don't change, something is going to happen here, no? So during I became vegetarian from 2011. I don't drink alcohol, and coffee, it was never my I drink tea all day long, so that's my addiction. But I realized, but it's also music taught me this, no, like this is so sacred what we do, no, and music deserves the best of ourselves, no. um, so I realized also that my energy completely changed when I changed my uh, not drinking alcohol, and the food. It completely changed my energy, and that's so important to me now. Like you said, when you drank alcohol, like you felt like my vital energy just wasn't there, no.
Yeah.
um, and I I I really have, I feel this in a sense like a religion, no, like music. in this sense. I mean, everybody can decide how to do it, no? But I do agree on how, like, the energy to take care of our energy, not just in food drinking, but also in our conversations,
Yeah,
what we watch on TV. um, it's so essential because our mind is so incredible, no?
yeah.
um,
No,
that
that's it's amazing. Are you doing well since?
Yes, yes, I'm
Okay,
great, thank you.
good. Um, yeah, our body, our mind, our emotions. There, I don't think there's any part of us that is separate from itself. You know, we're all a whole being, and whatever we're doing on one side is going to affect the other side, and we can't separate it. And including like what you're saying, our music. It's part of us. It's part of the flow coming out of us. As much as we would like to be able to separate those things, it's a mirror. You know, what I hear coming out in my sound is an absolute mirror into my insides, and the insides are a mirror into my playing. And so it's like if I start changing and altering and dissecting like a surgeon taking the scalpel and eliminating things I really don't want in my life, um the, it shows up in my playing. If I do the same thing in my playing, it shows up in my life. It's a spiritual process, really, for me. And the choices of what I'm eating and how I'm behaving, and um, the way I'm thinking and believing and allowing, like, what are my boundaries? Really, is kind of where it boils down to. What boundaries do I have? Um, and what are basically, what am I putting faith in? What Where is my trust boiled down to? Is it and the act of being able to surrender and not control. I have these fists that's kind of like, this is a negative thing, but if I can release that and surrender, like, um even when you boil it down to something like a shift in our playing.
Yeah,
No, like we're like in the middle of like, okay, Franck sonata. Da yada yada da da yada. We're doing these big leaps up. How can we do that with the conviction behind it, with the feeling behind it, with um the sonority and the tone and the intonation and everything that goes into making that the most glorious moment of music. I love that Franck sonata. I was just listening to the Franck Quintet last night. My mom and we actually had a Zoom call. I think you doing this and some other things made me realize I get to share what I'm doing with DSO with my mom. So I shared my screen and we watched one of my concerts together. And I'm listening to the Franck Quintet that we did with Thibodeau, and I was like, it's so much like the sonata. It's not even funny how similar his music is to the sonata. But okay, when we boil that shift down, what are we trusting? My practice, and even in my practice, what am I in that moment while I'm practicing it? What am I trusting? How do I know I'm going to make it? Do I know I'm going to make it? How do great musicians tackle these things and unraveling what goes into it? And I think we must have an element of faith, and we must have an element of surrender in what we do, and that we cannot over control the outcome, because that gripping gets in our way. So I mean, we could talk for days and
absolutely.
years about all of this, but this is my part of my journey.
Yeah, absolutely. But then when it comes to life, uh, what I hear from you is in a way is to have consciousness, no, of everything we do. And as you said, there are many things that we cannot control. I mean, that's part of life, no? But the beauty about this is that we choose. But if we're conscious, if we
I
have
think
consciousness, we get to choose. how we want to live our life.
Mm.
And so you are the creator of your life,
Yeah.
no?
And what you're saying, and this is the most important thing, is that you actually have to know what you want in order to choose it in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what I want to hear in that shift in the Franc, I have that image in my mind. It's actually in my bone marrow. I want that experience so much. I call it my must have when I talk to my students about these things.
Mm,
That what is your must have? You have to earnestly seek it. And when you're seeking it, you will find it.
mm,
And that earnestness is the energy that you need. It's not control. It's the I want this so much, and it's so clear to you what it is you want, and that's your leap. That's your faith and your trust, and the conviction behind it comes from all of that, not just because I got it correct yesterday, but I believe in it right now.
mm.
And yes, washing the dishes and the consciousness that we can have in that moment, if we can
Absolutely.
practice it there, we can practice it while we're walking, we can practice it while we're speaking, we can practice it while we're playing by ourselves in our practice room, we can practice that consciousness while we're in an audition or in front of 1,000 people, either online or in a hall.
Mhm. Kim, I was recalling when you mentioned about playing in the Aspen Chamber Orchestra next to David Perry, and you said something which is very important. I think that this idea of being next to someone that you admire, right? And then you have to nurture that, like breathe with him, or play like him, um, whatever it is, no? And I come to this idea of the ecosystem, like musical ecosystem, in the sense that we learn from everyone, no? And sometimes that is even more nurturing than actually studying with your teacher, no? Because everybody around you is learning as well, just like you, no? And I love this idea of I put the word ecosystem because with the idea of that I exist if you exist,
Mm.
no?
And that brings everyone up to honor,
Absolutely.
yeah, to honor the amazing qualities in you. Watching you gives me so much joy, and I admire your character and the things that you're looking at, things that are important to you. I'm just like, oh, I agree, and you're such a beautiful example. Look how you live your life. Look at your smile. Look at your glow. Look at
Mm,
the things and the changes you're making in your community in Chile,
mm,
and how you are bringing life, and surrounding yourself with other people who bring life. um, there's nothing more powerful than that. And I believe we can find that life anywhere we look. We just have to want to see it.
mm. And to be open also, no?
Yes, yes.
Which brings me again to another idea of something that happens I so often these times, is that we don't listen really, no? Like we don't really listen, and to really give the opportunity of the other person to talk, or to share with you, and you listen, really listen, um, we're so stuck with our things in our mind, no? That and this is actually has been a great exercise for me too, no? Because I have known every one of you from 20 years ago, and I probably have an image of all of you, no? But I don't want to relate from that image, I want to relate with the essence of who you are, no? But to do that, I need to listen, no?
Yeah, so thank you for not judging me just on my past, because giving
Well,
me
I
a
hope
chance.
I hope you're doing the same with me.
You have always been a light, Alejandra. Always been a light. No, I was sort of like, oh gosh, I have so many memories of Michigan, and it just always seems messy. I just, you know, I'm so glad that some parts of my life have not stayed that messy because
Kim, you are a son of light, always.
no, I have regrets. I have regrets, and I would love to go back and change some things and do have some do overs. And I've
I
learned a
had
lot.
I had mine too, and you know them.
I'm gonna keep them. They're all private. No,
uh,
but I agree, and listening is a powerful. And okay, so my kitchen sponge, if it's sitting there without water, it gets really really hard, and it's not, it's not really available to do much if it's that hard. But I believe being a sponge and kind of that naivety, like not being so assuming and so intellectual or know it all, like judgy, that if somehow we can not just assume I what I think is true, that I could be wrong. I could have more to learn. I could have something to grow and be better at. And the assumption that I've got something all together is the most scary thought I think I could have. As soon as I think, okay, got it, no more question mark, that to me is the sign that I am going to completely fall over. In
mhm,
order to to keep growing, I have to be open to believe that there's more to learn
mhm,
and there's more to absorb. So I still want to be that sponge. I also want to be, at some point in my life, the example. I want to be that David Perry that sits next to somebody that somebody else can glean from. But I also want to stay the sponge that looks at others and can soak up the beautiful things about them, as well as give back.
mhm. Well, Kim, you are definitely an example for many of us. And I love also the idea of keep being the sponge, because that word is infinite, no? A word full of possibilities.
Yay!
Yeah?
That word's going around right now. It's just beautiful, like the hope, and the desire from so many people to want what's better and what's, uh I guess, kinder. Like we want to have a world that is healing and is whole, and with so much division all around the world. I mean, we can look at America, or we could look at what's going on in Turkey and Armenia, or we could look at what's, going on in so many parts of our world, or we can look in our own homes, or we can look in our own minds. And there's example of this division and this war going on everywhere. And um yeah, I think our first effort needs to be just within ourselves and just within our sphere of influence close by. Um and and individually we can each march to that drummer of wanting wholeness, wanting others to succeed. When we want others to do well and we celebrate the best in others, and we're looking at the person, not just a statistic, and we're real people. We see each other, we hear each other, and we want the best for each other. That's going to change our world.
Wonderful. In- Great, great, Kim. I mean, I just so inspiring. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Um, I I I think I did share this phrase in another conversation, that Jonathan Larson mentioned, that the opposite of war is not peace but creation. No,
Mm.
so it's so beautiful because in a way you move the energy to create something extraordinary, and you don't fight the system. No, and sometimes and in so many ways we we go into that, not just fighting the system because I don't like the system and I spend so much energy in that. I don't do that anymore. What I do is I create a parallel world, the world that I want to live in. And it's incredible what happens with the energy when you start doing that. because then you realize there are so many people that are doing the same,
Yeah.
you know?
So we were talking about being a, a sponge. We're talking about being vulnerable and open, releasing, not trying to over control. And I think that in order for that to even be possible, humility is part of that. You know, thinking I know everything, humility is part of that. And there's a sign, usually you would see it. My studio behind me, you see flowers, but that's of course the virtual screen. I'll take that off just for a second so you can
Yeah.
see. Oops, not that. Here we go. There's my studio, green
Uh-huh.
screen. This is my technology. Behind that green screen is a quote that I put up, and this is where I used to teach. I don't teach in here anymore. It's too small. I'm actually just teaching virtually right now, for the most part, because the numbers are just going skyrocket in Michigan. But I have bigger space out in the living room. Anyway, on the wall inside my studio is a document talking about the amazing souls in the DSO. Somebody shared this with me in the flute section. And I have this on my wall because I just want to be reminded all the time humility, perpetual quietness of heart. It is to have no trouble. It is never to be fretted or vexed, irritable or sore, to wonder at nothing that is done to me, to feel nothing against me. It is to be at rest when nobody praises me and when I am blamed or despised. It is to have a blessed home in myself where I can go in and shut the door and kneel to my Father in secret and in peace, as in a deep sea of calmness when all around about me is seeming trouble. And I don't think that has ever 100% been true for me. I've gotten, to points where I can say it's closer.
Mm.
Uh, but just that fight, the ego to need control and to need validation and um, attention, things that motivate us to do certain things, but the ability to keep saying, I know I can do better. And I know I can learn from you. I know that you have something to offer me, um, and just to stay in a space where uh, I don't know, I don't need to praise myself, and I don't need other people to praise me. That is freedom. That there's so much freedom to harness there, and power to harness there. Actually, because there's nothing tethering you down. You're not in your own way anymore.
Mm.
I think that's a beautiful space to be.
Wow, Kim. Well, we our time is finished.
Oh,
I will keep talking and talking and talking, and I guess we have to do this again, Kim, privately.
okay, okay. Let's
Yeah.
have parties. You're doing
Uh,
that. I'll join more.
of course. Kim, Courtney Liebauer, remember her?
Yes. Hi,
She
Courtney.
says, "Hi, Kim. So great to see you after half a something. Wow, this is so true," she says about what you were talking about.
Mm,
Thank you, Courtney, for being with us this morning. And well, Kim, we're finishing this conversation this morning, and I thank you so much for sharing your life experience more than anything. No, it's so beautiful. Like it happens to me too with I'm usually with young musicians that I would teach them something with music, but I always end up talking about life. No.
yeah. Well, there's no way of getting around it. Definitely. Definitely. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited for you, Alejandra, and thank you for taking this time in COVID to make more connection than ever, and going through a hurdle in such a beautiful way. And your conversations are beautiful, and how you speak is beautiful, and you're bringing light to everyone you're in contact with.
Oh, Kim, thank you so much again for being here. Like I said before, it's very special to me that you're here this morning. It's so great to see you and to feel your soul, and to hear your voice again. So thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
for sharing, and we have to do something to to be together again. either you come to Chile, or maybe I go and visit your orchestra.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you can come conduct us and I can come play.
No, actually, I do have a beautiful project that I would love if you could be part of it. We will talk about it. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I can't wait.
So thank you, Kim, and thank you everyone for being here this morning, and to reconnect and to see how everybody's doing around the world. So thank you very much. Thank you, Kim, and I see you everyone this coming Sunday. Bye bye.